The darkness in the abandoned mining facility swallowed Nathan Wright whole as he pressed his back against the cold metal wall, his breathing shallow and controlled. Blood trickled down his temple from where one of the alien hunters had struck him with the butt of their energy weapon. He could hear them clicking and hissing in their strange language as they methodically searched through the corridors, getting closer with each passing second. Nathan had been running for 3 days straight. 3 days since the alien hunting party had landed their sleek vessel on the outskirts of Cygnus Colony, a remote human settlement on Proxima Centauri b. What had begun as a routine geological survey had turned into a nightmarish game of cat and mouse. The aliens called themselves the Vraxian Collective, an advanced species known throughout the galaxy as relentless hunters who collected specimens from various sentient races. Nathan had never expected to become one of their prized targets. A beam of pale blue light swept across the corridor just meters from his position. Nathan held his breath, pressing himself further into the shadows. The light was attached to a weapon held by a tall, slender figure with mottled gray skin. Its elongated head housed 4 glowing amber eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. "The human is nearby," the alien said in a guttural voice translated by some unseen device. "I can smell its fear." Another alien, shorter but more muscular, with ridged protrusions along its spine, moved closer. "This one has proven more resourceful than the others. Commander Zirek will be pleased with such a specimen." Nathan's fingers tightened around the small plasma cutter he'd salvaged from a maintenance closet. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it had helped him stay alive this long. His other hand clutched the small communication device he'd been trying to repair. If he could just get it working, he might be able to send a distress signal to the main colony. The aliens were now less than 10 meters away, their weapons charged and ready. Nathan knew he couldn't outrun them anymore. His legs burned from exhaustion, and the wound on his head made his vision blur intermittently. He was cornered. As the taller alien stepped closer, Nathan's mind raced through his options. Fight, surrender, neither seemed likely to end well for him. And then, in that moment of desperation, an absurd memory surfaced, his father's voice from years ago. "Sometimes, son, when you're backed into a corner, the only thing left to do is laugh at how ridiculous it all is." It started as a small chuckle, barely audible even to himself. But as the alien's lights found him, illuminating his blood-smeared face and tattered colony uniform, the chuckle grew into a full-throated laugh. It echoed through the metal corridors, bouncing off walls and machinery, taking on an almost supernatural quality in the darkness. The aliens stopped their advance, their amber eyes widening. The taller one raised its weapon hesitantly. "What is it doing?" the muscular alien asked, taking a step backward. Nathan couldn't stop. The laughter poured out of him, wild, unhinged, and somehow liberating. He laughed at the absurdity of his situation, at the cosmic joke that had brought him to this moment. Here he was, millions of miles from Earth, about to be captured by aliens who probably wanted to dissect him, and all he could do was laugh. The aliens exchanged what appeared to be concerned glances. The taller one's hand was now visibly trembling. "It is displaying signs of madness," it said, backing away further. "This is not normal human behavior. Could it be infected?" The muscular alien asked, its voice tinged with something Nathan recognized as fear. "The human disease protocols, we cannot risk contamination," the taller alien decided abruptly. "Command must be informed." To Nathan's astonishment, the aliens began retreating, their weapons still pointed in his direction but no longer advancing. His laughter, now mixed with genuine surprise, continued to fill the darkness. "The specimen is compromised," the muscular alien said. "We must abort and decontaminate." Within moments, the aliens had disappeared back down the corridor, the sound of their hurried footsteps fading away. Nathan's laughter finally subsided, replaced by disbelief and a glimmer of hope. Had his inexplicable outburst actually scared them off? He waited 5 minutes in silence before daring to move, every muscle in his body tense and ready to spring. But the aliens didn't return. Somehow, his maniacal laughter had bought him a reprieve. Nathan slumped against the wall, a mixture of relief and exhaustion washing over him. His hand went to the wound on his temple, coming away sticky with blood. He needed to find medical supplies soon. But first, he had to understand what had just happened and why his laughter had frightened creatures who had been hunting him like a prized animal. With shaking hands, he returned to working on the communication device. If the aliens were temporarily retreating, this might be his only chance to contact the colony. As he connected wires and adjusted settings, his mind raced with possibilities. Whatever weakness he had accidentally discovered, he needed to exploit it and fast. The device finally crackled to life, a small green light indicating it was operational. Nathan quickly entered the emergency frequency for Cygnus Colony. "This is Survey Team Alpha," Nathan Wright reporting. "Code Red, I repeat, Code Red. Alien hostiles on planet. Need immediate extraction from the abandoned mining facility in Sector 7. They're hunting us. But I think I found something they're afraid of." He sent the message, praying it would reach someone. As he waited for a response, Nathan's eyes scanned the darkness. The hunters might have retreated, but he doubted they had given up entirely. Whatever respite he had gained through his bizarre laughter, he needed to use it wisely. The communication device crackled and a voice broke through the static. "Nathan, this is Colonel Mercer at Cygnus Command. We've been searching for your team for 2 days. What's your situation? What happened to the others?" Nathan closed his eyes briefly, the memory of his teammates' death still fresh and painful. "They're gone, Colonel, all of them. The aliens. They call themselves the Vraxian Collective. They're collecting specimens, humans. My team tried to fight back, but their weapons were too advanced." "Hold position, Nathan. We're sending a rescue team. Eat a 40 minutes. Can you stay hidden that long?" Nathan glanced down the corridor where the aliens had disappeared. "Maybe, but there's something else you should know. They retreated when I started laughing." "I know it sounds crazy, but they seemed genuinely frightened by it. Called me compromised and mentioned something about human disease protocols." The line was silent for a moment before Mercer responded. "Interesting. Our xenobiologists might have some theories about that. For now, use whatever works to stay alive until we get there. Mercer out." Nathan tucked the communication device into his pocket and pushed himself to his feet. 40 minutes was a long time to evade hunters who knew he was in the facility. He needed to move and find a more defensible position. As he crept through the dark corridors, Nathan's mind kept returning to the aliens' reaction. Why would laughter frighten them? Was it the sound itself or something they associated with it? If he understood that, he might have a better chance of survival. After navigating through several junctions, Nathan found a small control room with only one entrance. It would be easier to defend, and the old computer systems might still have useful information. He slipped inside and barricaded the door with a heavy metal cabinet. The control room's emergency lights still functioned, casting a dim red glow over the dust-covered consoles. Nathan searched the cabinets and found a first aid kit. With shaking hands, he cleaned the wound on his temple and applied a synthetic skin patch to stop the bleeding. As he worked, his thoughts kept returning to the aliens' retreat. Human disease protocols, they had said. Could they have mistaken his laughter for a symptom of some illness? Many species across the galaxy feared human diseases, which had evolved on Earth in isolation for millions of years. Perhaps the Vraxians were particularly cautious about biological contamination. Nathan had just finished treating his wound when he heard sounds from outside the control room, the distinctive hissing language of the Vraxians. They had returned and were methodically searching the facility again. "The human cannot have gone far," a voice said from the corridor. "Thermal scans indicate it is still within this section. We must proceed with caution," another replied. "If it is carrying a neurological pathogen as suspected, direct contact could be fatal." Nathan blinked in surprise. A neurological pathogen. They thought he was infected with some kind of brain disease that caused insane laughter. The misunderstanding was almost comical, and he had to suppress a genuine laugh at the irony. The aliens were getting closer. Nathan looked around the control room for anything he could use as a weapon or distraction. His eyes fell on the facility's intercom system. An idea formed reckless, possibly suicidal, but it might just work. He moved to the console and activated the system, checking to make sure it still functioned throughout the facility. Then, taking a deep breath, Nathan pressed the broadcast button and began to laugh again. The sound of his laughter boomed through the facility's speakers, echoing down every corridor and chamber. He laughed harder and louder than before, channeling all his fear, exhaustion, and desperation into the sound. Outside the control room, he heard the aliens react with alarm. "It has accessed the communication systems," one shouted. "The pathogen could be airborne. Seal your respiratory filters." Another commanded. "We must retreat to the ship and report this development." Nathan continued laughing into the intercom, adding wild, crazed inflections to make it sound as unhinged as possible. Through the small window in the control room door, he caught glimpses of the aliens hurrying past, their movements now frantic and disorganized. "The specimen is not worth the risk of contamination," one of them declared. "Commander Zirek will understand once we explain the situation." Nathan kept the performance going until he could no longer hear the aliens in the vicinity. Only then did he release the intercom button, his throat raw from the forced laughter. Had it worked? Had he actually driven them away with nothing but the sound of human laughter? He needed to be sure. Carefully, Nathan moved the cabinet away from the door and peered out into the corridor. It was empty. Using the communication device, he contacted Colonel Mercer again. "Colonel, the aliens seem to be retreating. They think I'm infected with some kind of neurological disease that causes uncontrolled laughter. They're afraid of contamination." "That's unexpected," Mercer replied. "But it matches what our xenobiologists know about the Vraxians. They're obsessively cautious about biological threats. Their species was nearly wiped out by a pandemic centuries ago. How long until extraction? 25 minutes. The rescue team is prepping now. Stay put if you can." Nathan was about to respond when he heard a new sound, the low hum of engines powering up. Moving to a window at the end of the corridor, he could see the Vraxian's ship in the distance, its lights pulsing as it prepared for departure. "Colonel, I think they're leaving. Their ship is powering up." "That's good news, but don't let your guard down. They might have left sentries behind." Nathan watched as the sleek alien vessel rose from the ground, its hull gleaming under the light of Proxima Centauri. It hovered for a moment, then accelerated upward, quickly becoming a distant point of light in the alien sky. A mixture of relief and disbelief washed over him. Had he really driven off an entire hunting party of advanced aliens with nothing but laughter? It seemed too absurd to be true, and yet the evidence was right before his eyes. Nathan made his way back to the control room to wait for the rescue team. Now that the immediate danger had passed, exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. He slumped into a chair and tried to process everything that had happened. His team was gone, 6 good people who had become friends over the months of their geological survey mission. Nathan had witnessed their deaths one by one as the Vraxians hunted them through the colony's outskirts. Only his knowledge of the old mining facility had allowed him to evade capture longer than the others. The memory of their final moments sent a wave of grief through him, momentarily displacing his relief at his own survival. They deserved better than to die as specimens for alien collectors. 20 minutes later, the communication device crackled again. "Nathan, this is Captain Rivera with the rescue team. We're approaching your position from the east. Any sign of the hostiles?" "Their ship left about 15 minutes ago," Nathan replied. "I haven't seen any movement since then." "Stay where you are. We'll come to you." 5 minutes later, Nathan heard the sound of the colony's transport vehicles outside the facility. He made his way to the entrance, still cautious but eager to reach safety. As he stepped outside, the bright lights of the vehicles momentarily blinded him. When his vision cleared, he saw a team of heavily armed colony security personnel approaching, with Captain Rivera at the lead. "Nathan Wright?" Rivera asked, lowering her weapon as she recognized him. "Are you injured?" "Just a head wound." "I've patched it up," Nathan replied, the reality of his rescue finally sinking in. "The aliens, we saw their ship leave orbit," Rivera said, gesturing for her team to secure the area. Colonel Mercer said you scared them off with laughter. That sounds hard to believe. Nathan managed a weak smile. Trust me, I'm having trouble believing it myself. Let's get you back to the colony. The medical team is standing by and Colonel Mercer wants a full debriefing. The return journey to Cygnus Colony passed in a blur for Nathan. The adrenaline that had kept him going for days was finally wearing off, leaving him drained and numb. The medic on the transport treated his head wound properly and checked him for other injuries, but physically, he had been lucky. When they arrived at the colony, Nathan was taken directly to the medical center. Dr. Alina Patel, the colony's chief physician, conducted a thorough examination. "You're dehydrated and exhausted," she told him as she reviewed his scan results, "and you have a mild concussion from the head injury. But considering what you've been through, you're in remarkably good shape." "What about the others?" Nathan asked, although he already knew the answer. "Did anyone else make it back?" Dr. Patel's expression softened. "I'm sorry, Nathan, we've recovered the bodies of 4 members of your team. Search parties are still looking for the other 2. Nathan closed his eyes, the grief washing over him anew. "The Vraxians took them for their collection." Dr. Patel placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry. We'll make sure they're honored properly." After being treated and given a chance to shower and change into clean clothes, Nathan was escorted to Colonel Mercer's office for debriefing. The colonel was a stern-faced woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too many crises on too many worlds. "Wright," she said, gesturing for him to take a seat, "I'm glad you made it. What you did out there evading those hunters for 3 days, that's impressive." "Not impressive enough," Nathan replied, his voice hollow. "I couldn't save the others." Mercer nodded solemnly. "I know. And we'll address that. But right now, I need to understand exactly what happened with these Vraxians, especially this business about your laughter driving them away. It could be vital information for future encounters." Nathan recounted everything in detail: the initial attack on their survey camp, the methodical hunting of his teammates, his days on the run, and finally, the strange reaction of the aliens to his laughter. "They seemed genuinely terrified," he explained. "They kept mentioning disease protocols and contamination risks. When I used the intercom to broadcast my laughter throughout the facility, they fled completely." Colonel Mercer listened intently, occasionally making notes. When Nathan finished, she tapped a button on her desk. "Dr. Yamato, please join us." A moment later, a door opened and a middle-aged man in a lab coat entered. "Colonel, Mr. Wright, I'm Dr. Kenji Yamato, head of xenobiology here at Cygnus." "Dr. Yamato has a theory about why your laughter frightened the Vraxians," Mercer explained. The scientist nodded eagerly. "Based on the limited data we have on Vraxian physiology and culture, I believe I understand what happened. The Vraxians suffered a catastrophic pandemic approximately 3 centuries ago by our calendar. It wiped out nearly 60% of their population." "You mentioned that before," Nathan said, "but what does that have to do with laughter?" "The disease primarily affected their neurological systems," Dr. Yamato continued. "According to our intelligence, one of the first symptoms was uncontrolled facial spasms and vocalizations, somewhat similar to human laughter. When you began laughing, especially in such an intense and uncontrolled manner, they likely associated it with the early stages of this deadly disease." Nathan considered this. "So they thought I was infected and contagious." "Precisely," Dr. Yamato confirmed. "The Vraxians are now exceptionally cautious about biological threats. Their hunting parties are under strict protocols to avoid any potential contamination. When they encountered what they perceived as symptoms of a neurological disease, especially one that might be similar to their historical pandemic, their training would have demanded immediate retreat and decontamination." "That's why they called me compromised," Nathan realized. "They weren't afraid of me, they were afraid of what they thought I might be carrying." "Indeed," Dr. Yamato said. "And when you broadcast your laughter throughout the facility, you likely triggered their highest level of contamination alert. Their only logical response would be immediate evacuation." Colonel Mercer leaned forward. "This information could be crucial, right? The Vraxians have been expanding their hunting territories for decades. You may have discovered the first effective defense against them that doesn't involve superior firepower. Nathan found it difficult to take satisfaction in the discovery. It won't bring my team back. No, Mercer agreed soberly, but it might save others in the future. We're going to share this information with all human colonies and Earth's defense forces. Your experience might save countless lives. The debriefing continued for another hour as Nathan provided every detail he could remember about the Vraxians' weapons, tactics, and behavior. By the time it concluded, exhaustion had caught up with him completely. "Get some rest, Wright," Colonel Mercer said as he stood to leave. "You've earned it. We'll talk more tomorrow about arrangements for returning to Earth if that's what you want." Nathan nodded numbly and was escorted to temporary quarters. Sleep claimed him almost instantly, but it was far from peaceful. In his dreams, he relived the hunt, saw his teammates fall one by one, and heard the alien voices discussing him as a specimen to be collected. He woke with a start several hours later, heart racing and body drenched in sweat. The room was dark except for the soft glow of the environmental controls. For a moment, disorientation gripped him. Was he still in the mining facility? Were the hunters still searching for him? Reality slowly reasserted itself. He was in Cygnus colony, safe behind its defensive perimeter. The Vraxians had left the planet. He had survived. Nathan got up and moved to the window. Proxima Centauri's red light bathed the colony in a perpetual sunset glow. In the distance, he could see the mountains where his team had been conducting their survey just days ago. It all seemed so normal, so peaceful, a stark contrast to the terror he had experienced. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Nathan hesitated, then called out, "Come in." The door slid open to reveal Dr. Patel. "I saw on the monitors that you were awake," she explained. "Nightmares." Nathan nodded. "Pretty bad ones." "That's to be expected after what you've been through," she said, entering the room. "I can give you something to help you sleep without dreams if you'd like." "Maybe later," Nathan replied. "Right now, I think I need to be fully aware, even if it's uncomfortable." Dr. Patel understood. "There's something else. We've received word from the search parties. They've recovered the remaining members of your team." Nathan's throat tightened. "All of them?" "Yes." "They're being brought back to the colony now." A wave of emotion washed over Nathan, grief for his lost friends, but also a sense of closure knowing they would receive proper burials rather than ending up as specimens in an alien collection. "Thank you for telling me," he managed to say. "There's a memorial service being planned for tomorrow," Dr. Patel added. "If you feel up to it," Nathan nodded. "I'll be there." After Dr. Patel left, Nathan remained by the window, watching as dawn broke over the colony. Despite the tragedy of the past few days, a question kept nagging at him. Would the Vraxians return? And if they did, would they come better prepared, perhaps with protection against what they perceived as human biological weapons? His thoughts were interrupted by another chime at the door. This time, it was Colonel Mercer. "Wright, sorry to disturb you so early, but we've received some important information I thought you should know immediately." Nathan gestured for her to continue. "Our long-range sensors detected the Vraxian ship jumping to FTL on a direct course away from our sector. They're not just leaving our planet, they're leaving our entire star system in a hurry." "That's good news," Nathan ventured, uncertain of the colonel's concern. "It could be," Mercer agreed. "But there's more. We intercepted communications between their ship and what we believe is their fleet command. Our linguists are still working on a complete translation, but they've managed to decipher parts of it." "What did it say?" "The hunting party reported encountering a new human biological defense mechanism, what they're calling the madness signal. They described it as a vocalization that triggers neurological collapse." Nathan couldn't help but feel a spark of incredulous amusement. "They think human laughter is a weapon, not just a weapon," Mercer corrected. "From what we can tell, they believe it's a highly evolved defense mechanism that humans can trigger at will, a kind of psychic attack that uses sound as its carrier." "That's completely wrong," Nathan pointed out. "Laughter is just an emotional response. It's not a weapon or a defense mechanism, at least not in the way they're thinking." "Of course not," Mercer agreed, "but their misunderstanding might work to humanity's advantage." Their command has ordered all hunting parties to avoid human targets until they can develop countermeasures. That could give us months, maybe years, of respite from their collection activities. Nathan considered this unexpected development. So my accidental discovery might actually protect human colonies throughout this sector. It appears so, Mercer confirmed. Sometimes the most effective deterrents are based on misunderstandings and fear rather than actual threats. The irony wasn't lost on Nathan. For days, he had been consumed by terror, hunted like an animal by beings with superior technology and strength. And in the end, what had saved him was the aliens' own fear not of him, but of what they thought he represented. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we prepare," Mercer said firmly. The Vraxians will eventually realize their mistake or develop ways to protect themselves from what they perceive as our madness signal. When that happens, they'll return. We need to be ready with real defenses, not just misunderstandings. Nathan nodded, a new sense of purpose beginning to replace his grief and exhaustion. "I want to help. Everything I observed about their tactics, their weapons, it could be useful for developing those defenses." "I was hoping you'd say that," Mercer replied with approval. Earth Defense Command has already requested that you join their xenothreat analysis team once you've recovered. Your first-hand experience with the Vraxians makes you uniquely valuable. For the first time since the attack, Nathan felt something other than fear or grief, a sense that his survival might have meaning beyond just luck or a bizarre misunderstanding. "I'll do whatever I can," he promised. The next day, Nathan attended the memorial service for his fallen teammates. The entire colony gathered to honor their sacrifice and courage. Nathan spoke briefly, sharing memories of each team member and promising that their deaths would not be in vain. After the service, he spent time with the families who had lost loved ones, answering their questions and providing what comfort he could. It was painful but necessary part of his own healing process as much as theirs. In the weeks that followed, Nathan worked closely with the colony's defense team, sharing everything he had learned about the Vraxians. When he was strong enough to travel, he boarded a transport bound for Earth, where he would join the xenothreat analysis team at Defense Command Headquarters. As the transport broke orbit around Proxima Centauri b, Nathan looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Vraxians were likely developing countermeasures against what they believed was a human biological weapon. When they returned, and he was certain the laughing defense wouldn't work again, but humanity would be ready. And Nathan would make sure of it. 6 months later, Nathan stood before the United Earth Defense Council, completing his presentation on Vraxian hunting tactics and vulnerabilities. "In conclusion," he said to the assembled military and political leaders, "while the misunderstanding about human laughter has given us valuable time, we must use that time wisely. The Vraxians will return, and when they do, they'll be prepared for our supposed madness signal." Admiral Chen, the head of Earth's defense forces, leaned forward. "Your recommendations, Mr. Wright, a three-pronged approach," Nathan replied confidently. "First, enhanced early warning systems for all colonies, especially those on the frontier. Second, development of weapons specifically designed to counter Vraxian technology based on the data we've gathered. And third, a comprehensive diplomatic initiative." "Diplomatic?" a council member questioned skeptically. "These are hunters who collect sentient beings." "What basis could there be for diplomacy?" "The basis is mutual fear," Nathan explained. "The Vraxians fear biological contamination above all else. We now understand that. Instead of waiting for them to overcome that fear, we could open communication channels, explain that human laughter is not a weapon, and establish boundaries that would prevent future hunting expeditions in human space." Admiral Chen nodded thoughtfully. "A combination of strength and understanding. I like it. The Council will consider your recommendations." As the meeting adjourned, Nathan gathered his materials. Dr. Yamamoto, who had also been brought to Earth as part of the analysis team, approached him. "That was well presented," the xenobiologist said. "Especially the diplomatic angle. Most people who have been through what you experienced would only advocate for military solutions." Nathan shrugged. Don't get me wrong, I want us to be able to defend ourselves. But I've seen what fear can do from both sides now. The Vraxians ran from me because they were afraid of something they didn't understand. I don't want humanity making the same mistake. A wise perspective, Dr. Yamato acknowledged. By the way, I've been meaning to ask, how are you doing with the nightmares? Any improvement? Nathan considered the question. The nightmares hadn't disappeared entirely, but they had changed. They're less frequent now. And sometimes in the dream, instead of just running or hiding, I find myself laughing at the hunters, and they run away. Dr. Yamato smiled. Your mind is processing the experience, integrating it into something you can live with. That's good progress. I suppose it is, Nathan agreed. There's something almost poetic about it all, isn't there? The most feared hunters in the galaxy, and they ran away because a cornered human started laughing in the dark. Life is full of such ironies, Dr. Yamato observed, and sometimes those ironies save us. As they walked together toward the exit, Nathan found himself thinking about his teammates again. Their death still hurt, but he had channeled that pain into purpose. Because of what happened to them, and because of his bizarre discovery, countless human lives might be saved. And somewhere in the vastness of space, Vraxian hunters were telling stories about the dangerous humans who could drive them away with nothing but the sound of their madness, signal their laughter in the dark. It wasn't the legacy Nathan had ever imagined for himself, but it was one he could live with. And sometimes, when the memories became too heavy, he would allow himself a genuine laugh at the cosmic absurdity of it all, the unexpected twist of fate that had transformed him from prey to legend.